All right, perfect. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope you all had a great weekend. Happy Monday. Um, mm, all right, today we'll be talking about, and this camera's really bothering me to be honest, but it's fine. We'll get through it. So today we'll be talking about CPI. We'll talk about NAR settlement now that it's August 19th. All the changes went effective on Saturday. I did a training for the elite agents last week or the week before. Very, very good. Maybe we'll implement that into Monday Mortgage Minute as well. But we'll just kind of briefly go over it today and talk about it. But first, CPI came in at 2.9%, which was lower than expected. Core CPI was also lower than expected at 3.2% year over year. Two main things are what's keeping inflation elevated right now, and that's shelter and motor vehicle insurance costs. Everything else has been flat or negative. PPI is also down year over year from 2.7% to 2.2%. Core PPI is at 2.4%, down from 3%. Now, remember that PPI or Producer Price Index is measuring inflation on the wholesale level, while CPI or Consumer Price Index is retail. So usually, PPI would lead CPI in the future. Whatever companies are getting or paying for goods and services translates over to the consumer side as the months continue to go by. National Association of Home Builders report is out for August, showing their housing confidence continuing to lower down to 39 from 41. Remember, this is a sliding scale from 0 to 100. So where anything above 50 signals expansion or building, anything below 50 signals contraction. And right now they're full court press on contraction. And you actually see it in the numbers that they report, showing permits are down 7% year over year. Starts are down, housing starts are down 16% year over year. Construction is down 9.6% year over year. The only thing that is positive are completions, housing completions, and that's because completions are the last phase of the project. And those are homes that are usually started about a year or so ago, that building process. Remember that it goes from permits to starts to construction to completion. Right now, rates on average are at 6.5%, which is really good. Purchase applications are only down 8% year over year after being as low as 20% down year over year. So even purchase applications are starting to pick back up. Refinances are what have increased drastically, and they're up 118% from this time last year. So basically, refinance business has essentially more than doubled from last year. And purchase applications are the ones that are lagging behind, but not for long. It seems like as long as these rates stay low or stable at this point. There's only $9 million left for Hometown Heroes. That means that there's about less than 2 weeks of money left. If you have clients depending on that money, they need to get under contract this week. And it's imperative that you guys have this conversation with them. So, before I kind of move on to the next paragraph here, there's a lot of pre-approvals that we have that are Hometown Heroes clients, right? And we try to push as much as we can. Our follow-up system, you guys are pretty much aware. If you work with us once a week at minimum, we try to reach out to these clients depending on where they're at in the buying process. Pre-approvals, we reach out to them every single Thursday, asking how everything is going and trying to have those conversations with them. But the people that they have the most confidence with are their realtors, because they see their realtors every single day. They may have seen us one time, me on Zoom, but the one that they build rapport with is you guys. So just making sure that you guys have your follow-up systems as well, and attacking them because a lot of these pre-approvals that's money for you guys may not be money when Hometown Heroes runs out, right? Obviously, there's other programs that are out there that could help them, but we know that Hometown Heroes at 5% down payment assistance is usually one of the better ones and easier to get these clients engaged and moving forward with. So just make sure that you're on top of them and saying, look, either we get under contract this week or we're going to have to start pivoting and asking, what other assistance programs are out there, because you can't be dragging your feet either, right? Have that follow-up system in place so that we shouldn't necessarily be at this point with a lot of these clients, right? That are on the fence or 50-50 and scared to make that jump. If they want the money, it's a limited time. It's that simple. NAR settlement changes are in effect as of Saturday. So make sure that you are having your buyer sign the buyer brokerage agreement before you go show homes, or you will be wasting your time. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of I know a lot of people think that things will stay the same and be kosher. A lot of realtors, in terms of, you know, the expectation that the sellers are still going to be giving that 6%, and I can tell you firsthand that that's not the case. And this is actually, that's part of my presentation that I speak to you guys about. I'm on the mortgage side. Okay, we've pretty much been this whole time with margin compression the last 2-3 years. Ultimately, it's been a race to the bottom, right? And it's going to be the same thing, and it's the same thing when it comes to agents. Somebody's
all that sand in his hair.
there it is.
Good morning.
Right.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I had a question. I know
okay.
you stated it's 9 million left. I know from the previous past, usually when the funds runs out, they usually kind of allocate, like, let's say if some deals fell through or it was extra money, like they'll usually do it, like, was it on Monday or Tuesday? It was a certain day that they'll usually drop extra. Would they be doing it this time around or no?
Yeah, they're gonna do that until the money's completely out. So yeah, they will continue to do that. They haven't made that announcement, but there's no reason why they would keep extra money if those funds, you know, drip out. So yes, expect that to happen. But we don't want to rely on that either, right? We want to make sure that the clients are because those are first come, first serve basis, and that's where like it gets really tough. You got to be there at 10 a.m. to be ready to lock those clients in and things like that. So yeah, while the money's still there, we want to try to get it. But yes, if there's any trickle out that happens, right, they will put that up week to week, so that those, you know, those funds can be reserved and taken up. And last year we saw them, you know, readjust and get another $33 million out there in October. You know, maybe they do that this year. We don't know.
No. Okay.
But yeah, it's telling the clients this may be your only chance, because until we know for sure that there's going to be more money, that's the way that we have to play it.
Yes. Okay. Got it. Thank you so much, Mike.
No problem. But yes, when it comes to the NAR settlement, you know, I know a lot of agents are very optimistic. You know, if you guys get listings, you're going to be doing it at 6% and, you know, compensating the buyer's agent just because that's the way that it's always been, and because the buyer's agent is bringing the buyer, essentially, right? And if you end up having the buyer and working both sides, it's great. But you are few and far in between when it comes to agents, right? A lot of agents, when you're doing these listing appointments, right, and you're going to these sellers and saying, these are the things that I can provide to you service-wise in terms of being able to get your home sold, right? X, Y, Z, whatever the case is. There's another agent that's going to be coming in through that door that hasn't closed a deal in, you know, 3-4 months, and they're going to come in and basically say, there's no reason for you to pay the buyer's agent, right? I can list your home at 3% and we'll be able to get it sold. And did you see the NAR settlement and all these things, right? It happens. It's a race. Call it a race to the bottom. Okay. Mortgages is the same thing. For those of you that don't know, every single mortgage company gets rates pretty much at the same spread or same profit, for to say the least. That's why mortgage-backed securities are in place, right? We talk about the 5.5 coupon, the 6% coupon, right? Whatever a rate is for that day, let's say, you know, the lenders try to price out a 6.5. Well, that 6.5 may be paying the lenders 4% or 3.5% or whatever the case is, right? And so the lender looks at it and says, okay, how much spread do I want to make, right? How much commission do I want to make on doing a loan? Is my profit margin 4%? Is it 3.5? Is it 5%? Right? And every single company, pretty much for the most part, they're going to get the same rate. So everybody looking at 6.5, more or less, the amount that they're going to get paid for it is around the same thing. Maybe it's off a little bit by an eighth or a quarter on the company, depending on different investors that they have and things like that. But it's never that far off, right? And so now they look at it and basically ask that question: what is my margin off these, off of this type of loan, whether it be conventional or FHA. And it's essentially who wants to work for the least amount. So you may go to Chase and see a 6.5, and that 6.5 may be par, meaning that the client may not have to pay any points. And then with another lender, you may have to pay 0.5%, right? That means that that lender wants to make 0.5% more than what Chase is making at that time. That's just how it is. Every lender pretty much has the same rate. It's just who wants to work for the least amount of money. And that's what's going to happen with the NAR settlement as well. So just making sure that you protect yourself. The best time to get a client to sign a buyer brokerage agreement is it usually is the first thing you do with them. Hey, this is part of my process. Buyer brokerage agreement signed, done. Then you go ahead and start moving forward with the pre-approval process, introducing them to your team, your lenders, all of these things, because if you wait and it starts to sink in, right, how much they have to pay, things like that, that's where they start to get a little bit nervous, and they may not be willing to sign that buyer brokerage agreement with you after. And then you just wasted, maybe it's only been a couple hours of work for you, but that's still time wasted. So when you're having your initial conversation with the client, make sure that you get them to sign that buyer brokerage agreement up front and let them know, most of the time we'll be able to get it from the seller. These are the negotiation tactics, all these things. Now, right now you're kind of selling to them, but make sure that that's up front. Okay. I also recommend that if we are running numbers for your clients, check beforehand if the seller is paying commission, so that way we can add it onto the closing cost worksheet, and it's not a surprise. I keep looking up here, and it's not a surprise for the clients at that time, right? Because the thing that we don't want to happen is we don't put it on the closing cost worksheet, right? That seller's not paying any commission. The client thinks their cash to close is $10,000. Now it ends up being 19. Because of the buyer brokerage agreement attached to it. And now it's, they say, well, I didn't know this, right? Finger pointing back and forth. We don't want that. So if you can ahead of time, calling the listing agent, making sure, hey, is the seller willing to pay? How much? You have all that information. When it's time for us to run the numbers, we know, okay, on this listing, they're paying 2%. Buyer brokerage agreement is at 3%. On this one, they're paying the full 3%, right? And we can differentiate and add that in there as well, okay? Same thing. If they're paying your commission, we need to know how much, and it should come with the contract as well. That buyer brokerage agreement you got to send it to us, because your commission is what we call a zero tolerance fee in mortgages, meaning that it has to show up on the loan estimate. It can't just show up on the closing disclosure, a couple of days before closing, and it be kosher. If that's the case, it will require us to eat that cost, and we're not going to eat that cost. Okay. So the easiest thing is just being upfront with us, because we do have to disclose it up front when we're under contract. And it's just more transparency and clear for the buyer at that time. We're working, my team specifically, we're working out a way to be able to, if the client is not using any sort of down payment assistance programs and they're doing a regular loan, we might go back to giving a percentage back at closing for those clients, so that way, in turn, it kind of helps lower their cash to close, especially if they do have to pay for your commission. That percent hasn't really been set. I do have to kind of run the numbers on the margins that are placed and see realistically what would work ultimately. But we will be, within the next couple of weeks, kind of rolling something out for you guys. So that way, when a client does come through and they're closing and they're doing a regular FHA conventional VA USDA loan, right? Standard cookie cutter loan, they may get X amount towards closing cost credits, right? We can't do it with down payment assistance. I've told you guys before, Hometown Heroes doesn't pay the lender any money at all. So there is no credit that can be given. And technically, the credit that they're getting is 5% down payment assistance, right? So at that point, they got to make it work. But if they're doing a regular loan, that's a standard FHA conventional VA USDA cookie cutter type thing, then we'll be able to offer some incentives and some help to be able to close that gap. In the case that the seller's not going to be covering the commission, and that way we can help you guys still get paid on your deals. Okay. You guys have any questions, comments, concerns, any scenarios that you guys ran across this last week that you want to, speak to everybody about?
Hey, Mike, I was actually getting ready to type in the chat asking about the down payment assistance. I know you said with Hometown Heroes it wouldn't work. with them paying the compensation or the difference, if any. Does that also apply with like the state, the local counties DPA, since you know they cover the closing costs? How does that work?
Yeah, so the down payment assistance for the counties, they won't cover their and that's a great question. I'm not even going to say that they won't. Typically in the past they haven't. But in a sense you are right that they do cover closing costs, right? That's what the down payment assistance is. I'm really close to Broward, so I'll send them an email today and just kind of get their take on it and see what they say. I don't think that they will allow for those commission payments just because that down payment assistance is typically for the buyer. But there's a gray area there where it is essentially part of their closing costs now, or will be part of their closing costs. So maybe, that will be put into place. I doubt it, but I'm not going to tell you no until I get, the final from Broward, and I'll also reach out to MD as well and get their take too. But for the most part, I think that those down payment assistance programs are just going to cover the down payments, and the closing cost minus what the seller commission or the agent commission is. But I'll confirm and I'll let you guys know next Monday.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? No, we're pretty much good. All right, guys. Just make sure, like I said, please, please, please protect yourself. Do not waste your time. That buyer brokerage agreement, have them sign it in the beginning when they're excited to start the home buying process, right? Don't wait. I don't typically suggest to wait till, I give them their pre-approval, because when I'm doing the pre-approval, I'm sure
I think we lost them.
Yeah, you could have, but you didn't.